Hey, it's me. How are you, folks? Today we are joined by Doyle-Murray. Doyle-Murray is an actor of the stage and screen, a very versatile writer and director. You might know him from such television series and films as Mad Men, God Bless America, Shameless, Dharma Greg, The Artist, more than 250 sitcom episodes. He's also a part of the improvised comedic show Who's Live Anyway, which is coming to the Southeastern United States, Georgia, North Carolina, Texas, and then beyond. You can check out who'sliveanyway.com. May 8th, he's going to be in Atlanta at the Tabernacle, which I'll be there as well. And so, Doyle-Murray, thank you so much for joining us. How are you, sir?
I'm pretty good. Good morning, Paul. I'm in St. Louis, Missouri, overlooking the arch here. The Cubs are in town, and unfortunately we have a show at the same time as the ball game. But I would have liked to have taken that in.
Oh, man. Occupational hazard.
Yeah, well, it's just a tease. I was actually in an elevator last night with Chris Bryant and Javi Baez and Morrow, the closer, and Pedro Strop, but it kind of cracked me up. Like, here I am with my heroes. Remember when baseball players looked older than you? Anyway, I don't even.
Are you able to see anything? I mean, you mentioned the arch. Are you catching anything? Are you going to eat anything while you're in St. Louis?
Yeah, I'm an eater. We went out and we kind of looked around a bit. We're kind of isolated. We're right up against the river here, but we're right by the arch. I walked over there this morning. I'm going to go out and walk after we talk. There's a jazz club we're talking about hitting tonight, maybe. St. Louis ribs, I like the smaller baby back ribs myself. I don't like the big beef ones, but that might happen.
Right. So what is it like traveling with this troupe?
Well, it beats the heck out of being a stand-up comedian, I think that's probably a pretty lonely world when you're all by yourself and going to all these towns. And we're a band of jesters. There's 6 of us. There's 4 actors, and then we have a piano player, Bob Durkesh, and Morgan is our stage manager, tour manager. So there's 6 of us, and so we keep each other pretty amused, and it's pretty nice. This whole gig has been a godsend. Ryan Stiles asked me about 5 years ago to fill in for a weekend, and it's been 5 years now. So it's been a blessing, and we have a great time. I must say.
Is it all guys?
It's all guys, as far as I know. We're all men.
Is it like a brotherhood?
It's like a brotherhood. It's like a guy's weekend, every weekend kind of thing. But and we've got each other's back on stage and off stage, and it is a brotherhood. And there's a lot of trust when you want to get up in front of an audience of 1,500 so people and make up a show completely off the top of your head. You better trust the guys you're with.
So what do people say to you when they see you? For example, when you're in Atlanta, you're in the elevator, you're coming down to the lobby of the hotel, and somebody maybe they traveled out and they say, "Oh, I just caught the show." What do you find are people's reactions?
There's always the people that say, come on, you didn't make all that stuff up, and we did. The other thing is they've realized during the show, oh yeah, I saw you were on Shameless. I forgot all about that. Or, it often depends on my hair. If my hair is short, they recognize me from Mad Men, and if it's long, they recognize me from other things. But generally people are pretty excited, and then we usually hang out after the show and greet some people, and we usually end up at a hotel bar or at some bar and talk about the show a bit, and we'll run into people, and they're generally, very nice and, want a picture, but that's about it. They're not crazily starstruck.
Is there something that you do to prepare?
Well, I started studying improv with Del Close in about 1984, and I've been doing it, pretty steadily since then. So I guess, it's that outlier thing. Well, if you put in 10,000 hours of work, you're going to be prepared. But as far as prepared, no. I have some coffee, then I move on to a big glass of scotch for the show, and that's all the preparation, really.
So what is your scotch of choice?
Oh, that's the thing. Morgan, my stage manager, he gets something interesting all the time. As of late, he's been getting Glenlivet. I like the Macallan 12 when you're going to be doing a show, not too oaky or anything. I grew up, my uncle one time brought my mother a case of scotch for Christmas because there was no scotch when he came over, and he continued to do this for years. So I started drinking scotch at a young age, knowing that there only had to be enough for my uncle to have some when he was there, and the rest of it would be stolen by my brothers and I. So we grew up drinking Chevis, which was my uncle's scotch of choice. But there's all the Delwinnies, and there's a lot of stuff, and Morgan will often surprise me with something that I've never had before.
We're joined by stage and screen actor Doyle-Murray. One of my absolute favorite films, just period, such a unique movie, would have to be The Artist. Every single moment is just visually great, and it's just such a great story. I'm hoping you can tell us some of your most vivid memories from that movie.
Well, it was one of those Hollywood moments where your agent calls you and says, "Yeah, I have an audition for you at 5:30 on a Friday in Hollywood." And traffic-wise, that's just the worst-case scenario. And fortunately, I had a Vespa scooter, so when I'm in real trouble traffic-wise, I'll hop on the Vespa and zigzag my way. But I go, "Well, what is it for?" He goes, "Well, it's a French film. It's a French silent film. It's a French silent black and white film." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And that weekend, I don't know if that was 4 or 5 years ago now, everything was 3D and this and that. And are you kidding, really? And so I went to the audition on my Vespa, and I pulled up, and because it's for a silent, the director is having a glass of wine, and he's like, "Okay, now I like the way you're looking. So now say you're there, you're standing, and you see a bird fly over. Oh, I like the way you look at a bird. Oh, good." And it was all just this weird thing. Now a dog is coming to talk to you, and you don't want to be too friendly with the dog. No, the dog wants you to go with him. You don't want to go, and you're just miming this stuff out, and it was the craziest audition ever. And he basically, and now run in place. Now run very fast. Okay, very good. I like the way you run. Oh. And Michael Hazavekis, you can spell that on your own time, was really sweet, and I got the part, and much of the role was literally chasing a dog in a 1920s wool police outfit in wafer thin soled boots, and it was 100-yard wind sprints, then it was 50-yard wind sprints, and then there was a little bit, and I had one scene where I pull Jean Desjardins out of the fire, and I was expecting a little French guy like LeBeau on Hogan's Heroes or something, but he's a big guy. He's my size, so I had to go in this fire, which was a blazing fire in a set with the dog, and the dog stopped immediately, like, "Yeah, no, I'm not going any further. You go." And I would go and pick him up, and there was all this burning film around and flame, like up to your neck, and wildly toxic, I'm sure. But and I had to drag him out and down the stairs and out the door. It was pretty crazy, but it was a great experience. And when we were shooting scenes, you asked, so I'm going to keep going. When we were shooting scenes, because they weren't recording sound, sometimes they were just playing music. And I think this is the kind of the vibe we're going for in this scene. And, they'd be playing Edith Piaf or something in the background, and again, often drinking wine while we were filming, and it was surreal, and I was constantly thinking, this is a joke, this is nuts, but every once in a while you get a glimpse of the monitor or a playback of what he just shot, and you're like, oh my God, this guy is making a masterpiece. This is absolutely gorgeous, and it turned out to be just that. And I saw it for the first time in Toronto as part of the Toronto International Film Festival in a big, huge theater with like 2,000 people in an enormous old art house, circa 1910 theater with an enormous screen and curtains. And it was funny. You could hear people gasping and all this because of it being silent. It was really the way to see the film. And I was wildly impressed. And Jean Dujardin learned how to tap dance for that movie. He was not a dancer. So some of that stuff, you're like, really?
Wow.
Yeah, I got up my game, yeah.
Well, fantastic movie, as I said. Now, you've mentioned music a couple of times. And if somebody was to go on your social media, your Twitter or your Instagram, which they can do, it's Joel-Murray 9 of 9 for both of those, they will find music is a reoccurring theme. There's a picture of you with the great Rodney Crowell. And so I'm hoping you can tell us, I love Rodney Crowell, I'm hoping you can tell us about some of your musical loves.
Oh, well, I've always been a huge fan of music. I grew up sleeping with a radio next to my bed all my life. I like to fall asleep to it and wake up to it. But Rodney Crowell, by the way, is one of those people where you hang out with him and everything he says, you're like, wow, that's a song lyric. Wow. He speaks kind of in poetry. He's just very, very cool. And I really enjoy him. But I'm lucky in that I get to, see a lot of music. I am the host of the Hot Stove Cool Music thing, which is Theo Epstein's fundraiser in Chicago at the Metro. And, I've gotten to meet and hang out with Eddie Vedder and different people because of it. That event's always fun. I MC that. Music. Yeah, I play clarinet and I play saxophone, and I always wished I had learned to play guitar, but I didn't. I just and on the road we get a chance every once in a while to duck in and hear some music after a show. We were in a jazz club in I think Fort Collins, Colorado recently that just was phenomenal. Couldn't believe how good that was. But I don't know. Music, it's everywhere for me. I don't know. I'm saying I don't know a lot.
You mentioned this audition earlier, and it's an occupation where there's a certain amount of rejection. Do you think optimism is important when you're an actor, or for that matter, in anything?
I think, yeah, completely. And I have to audition still. People are like, oh, don't you get everything offered to you? No, I audition a lot, and I've always had the thing in my head that why not me? They're having an audition. They don't know who they want. They haven't given out the role. Why not me? So I've always gone in with that kind of positive attitude. And I've gotten roles that, were supposed to be 60-year-old guys when I was 30. And, I've gotten roles that I wasn't right for, but I always go on the auditions just to practice auditioning. And a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to read for that. Well, I'll go just for the practice of it. So when I do want something, I'm on my game, and the other thing about being an actor is it's a weird personal rejection. It's not, we don't want any of your fuller brushes. We don't want any of your diet soda. We don't want any of you. And it's so that can hurt you. And a lot of people, get bewildered and give it up. And as I get older, I see a lot of guys I used to audition against that have, gone into different fields and have given up on the acting. And I still am optimistic and still keep thinking, why not me? Could be me.
Nonetheless, do you like the competitiveness of, hey, we don't know what's going to happen here, let's give it a shot?
Well, it's like playing the lottery too. You don't know what you're going to get. You can go and audition for a sitcom, and you might end up on The Big Bang Theory making $1 million a week. You also might get something that is a pilot that never goes anywhere. So it is this weird lotto game that you're playing. So you kind of got to go, and you got to hope that the cards fall in the right angles. I mean, I've had times where when I auditioned for Dharma and Greg, I had just gone to network like 3 times for different things, and I didn't get them, and I was wildly disappointed. And I was driving home, and my agent said, well, there's this audition. It's for a guest star on a pilot, and well, it's right by your house. Just go. It won't take you long. It's right on your way. And I went and I auditioned for it, and I got 5 years on Dharma and Greg, 5 blocks from my house. But those other 3 things that were guaranteed on the air and had these great people and everything never went. So had I gotten one of those, it would have been a week's work. But it ended up being 5 years because I was still available, and I didn't get those. So it's a weird business. You never know.
Weird and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
There's a new location of the restaurant. We're talking about Murray Brothers Caddyshack, and it's in Rosemont, Illinois, in the Chicago area. I'm hoping you can tell our listeners about one of the men behind the restaurant, Chef Andy Murray.
Well, you're going deep. Yeah, my brother Andy's always been a cook. He's always he faked his IDs when he was like 14 years old so he could work at a restaurant. He's always worked at restaurants. And we've had one down in St. Augustine, Florida, which might be closer to you Atlanta listeners, for 18 years. And we're finally opening one on the outskirts of Chicago. It's right by the airport. If you have a long layover, there's actually a free shuttle bus over the Crown Plaza Hotel. You can go to the Murray Brothers Caddyshack. But Andy is a great cook, and he makes kind of comfort food, American food. It's a great array of stuff. It's tasty. One of my fondest memories as a kid was I used to fall asleep on the couch watching TV, and Andy'd come in at like 2 a.m, and we would decide we'd cook something at like 2 a.m. And just as everything was about to be done, the noise of pulling a plate off a stack of plates, my mother would wake up and go, "Boys, what are you doing out there?" And we would have these conversations with my mother at like 2:30 in the morning. And that was a special time for some reason. She was always waxing poetic at that point. And we would have these great conversations, and Andy would, had just made omelets at 2:30 in the morning or something like that. And one of my fondest memories. But the restaurant's great. It's got a lot of, Caddyshack memorabilia. My brother Brian wrote the Caddyshack with Harold Ramis and Doug Kenny. And Billy was in it, of course. My brother Ed was in it a little bit, and Johnny was in it a little bit, and Brian was Lou Loomis, the caddy master. So Caddyshack has been very good to us. And we all grew up caddying as a way to make money quick. So it's kind of funny that Caddyshack has been so beneficial to us.
Your brother, John Murray, has gone on the record saying that you're the funniest Murray of them all. How do you feel about that?
Well, first of all, I want to find where the record is.
It's in print,
I've
actually.
never heard that one. Yeah, that's funny. No, I wouldn't go with that one. My brother Bill's pretty funny. My brother Brian is very funny. And John is very funny. But we grew up around a big dining room table as kids, and everybody, you tried to make my dad laugh with food in his mouth in the second half of the meal, kind of thing. And we all kind of derived some learning out of that and timing. They're a funny bunch. It's a good meal. We used to actually have older brothers' friends would come by, and it was almost like there was a second seating. People would sit around and watch our dining room table because it was that humorous. But I don't think I'm the funniest, but hopefully I will be in Atlanta.
Tuesday at the Tabernacle. Well, this is probably
Mm-hmm.
a tough question, but who is the funniest person you have ever known?
Oh, gosh. I mean, besides family, the first couple celebrity golf tournaments I ever went on, I got to hang out with Alvy Moore. And Alvy Moore was the ranger on Green Acres. And he literally got me out of, he took the microphone on the bus on the way to the golf course. And he literally got me out of my seat and on the floor. I was laughing so hard. I had no muscle control. I just couldn't do anything but laugh and descend to the floor of the bus. So just, I'm sure I'll rethink this after we hang up, but Alvy Moore was one of the funniest guys I've ever met. And he and Frank Pace, was that his name? Frank? He was Mr. Drucker on Green Acres, and what was that other show they had? Petticoat Junction. He and his wife used to go to 26 celebrity golf tournaments a year. And so every other weekend, the four of them would go. And it was pretty funny to, just to see how much fun they were having with their lives, late in their lives.
Is it true that you also teach improv?
I do. I have. I just finished a stint teaching at UCLA that was supposed to be more of a comic scene study class, and I basically, with agreement from the class, they were like, you know what? We'd rather do improv. We'd rather have you teach us improv. And I said, well, what you need to do is figure out what you do that makes you funny. So, yeah, you should do some improv. So the class wasn't as much a scene study as it was supposed to be. But I've taught improv over the years in different places. I mean, from UCLA, we taught the executives at Netflix years ago. We had a improv encounter weekend, and we taught them. But I haven't taught that many students. Years ago, I didn't want to teach them anything because I thought they'd be coming after my job. Why teach them? And then lately, I just haven't had the time. But yeah, it's because I did actually study with Del Close, and I was, not even 7% away from studying with the guru. I feel like I should pass on that information, but who would have thought you'd be traveling around the country doing improv shows in your 50s? This is probably when I should have been teaching, but instead I'm performing still. So maybe in my 60s I'll go teach.
There's this clothing line, the William Murray Golf line. And
yes,
was the William, is that like a way to make it more sophisticated? What was the inspiration behind that?
Exactly. We were trying to classy up Billy. Billy didn't seem like a good golf line, but yeah, this is, it was something that we talked about doing as brothers, and we got into cahoots with these guys at the Chive website, and they had the wherewithal to do it all immediately and have, this crazy reach of their website. So we kind of talked each other into doing it together, and it's been very good. It's fabulous stuff. It's very comfortable. I'm wearing shorts and a shirt and a rain jacket right now, actually. But it's really good stuff, and it's really well made, and there's a lot of thought goes into it, and the brothers are in on the designs of it, and Billy's always had an interesting fashion eye, we'll call it. And so I think we all had an interesting fashion eye because, we were from 9 kids. You found things that somehow went together that most people wouldn't think went together. Or, yeah, no, this plaid goes with this plaid. So, yeah, we when you're dealing with hand-me-downs and things like that, you end up creating your own fashion sense. So we're getting it out there, and it's doing well. And most of it's all online. There are some select country clubs that have it for sale, but 99% of it's online at this point.
You're going to be touring, as always, with this stage show, and also from all of your screen work, who would you say that you have shared either stage time or screen time with that has impressed you the most?
Oh, well, I've had some blessings. I mean, my first show when I got to Los Angeles, I was hired off the stage at Second City. I was in a show with John Neville and John Randolph, and there was 100 years of experience between those two guys when I was starting out. John Neville, was a great classical Shakespearean actor. I learned quite a bit from him. When I was in the Secchi, I was with the likes of Mike Myers, Bonnie Hunt, Chris Farley, Tim Meadows, my good friend Dave Pasquazi. I happened to come up at a really good time to be with those people. John Hamm on Mad Men was really cool to work with. He and John Slattery both, but everybody on that show. But there was something about Hamm, besides the fact that he had like a photographic memory, and you had to up your game because you knew he knew all his lines. I remember sitting next to him one time, and he was preparing for a scene, and it was like 10 degrees colder next to him because he was acting like he was in a bad mood. But he has an amazing ability to change a room. I'm trying to think of who else I've acted with. This is one of those things like, wow, it's a lifetime. I've worked with some good people. A lot out there. I just did a movie called The Last Word, and I got to work with Shirley MacLaine, and that was pretty interesting. And she had just kind of this confidence about her that you couldn't help but pick up from. But I don't know. Hopefully I'll have somebody else to mention the next time we talk,
What do you hope people say about you when you're not around?
He's a good man. He was always on time. I like that about him. He knew his lines. He wasn't a pain in the ass. There's a lot of that in this business. What would they say? Yeah, I think, that's what you're striving for in life, is to have people say, yeah, he's a good man. I like him. I don't know if that always equates to work in Hollywood, because there's people that are notorious jerks and downright home invaders and all kinds of things like that get all the breaks, and it doesn't really work on the other side of that spectrum. Like, oh yeah, we should hire him. He's fun. He's nice to the crew. No, that doesn't always work.
In closing, I always like to leave very open-ended. I like to give the guest the stage. Just let them take the microphone. Within reason, of course. So, for anyone who's listening in, what would you say to them?
Just take the mic, Joel. On any level, what would you say to them? Well, I happen to be here where the Chicago Cubs are staying. And I've had the honor of staying at the Thompson Hotel in Chicago, where our manager lives. And I don't think he lives there anymore. But he's one of the nicest men in the world. And he's had great success. But one of the things he always says, after like talking to him for 5 minutes, he says, "What are you doing for somebody else, though?" And he'll try to get you involved into his projects. And Joe Madden's got a lot of things that he does, to help out other people, but he wants to know what you're doing to help out other people. And I think that there's enough self-centeredness in the world that you really have to take some time to help out other people. And you're gonna learn a lot more about yourself, and you're gonna feel good about it. I was asked once what was the best improv advice I had ever gotten. And I had done a show, and I had failed miserably, and my brother Bill had come. It was the first time he'd ever seen me get up and improvise. And I didn't do well, and we drove home, and it was really quiet, and it was like I had lost the Little League World Series or something like that. It was just, nothing was said. And eventually he goes, I meet a lot of people, and a lot of people want to talk to me about me. And, as an improviser, sometimes it's better what's always better? To ask them about them and find out what they do. And, oh, you're an actuary. Oh, what does that entail? And ask them questions about their job. And not only are you not then talking about yourself, which you know all those answers, and you know that's not going to give you anything. You're going to learn about that person, and you're going to make that person feel better. And it's going to make you a better improviser, because some night somebody's going to throw out actuary, and you're going to have to perform. And all of a sudden, you're going to say, God, I met Jim Dutton that time, and he's an actuary, and he does this and that. And then you're going to have something in your holster to draw, And so I guess, in summary, yeah, ask what the other guy does. Don't make it about you, and think about doing something for somebody else today.
Man, what a great answer.
Well, I just made it up.
One more question.
Yeah. You said in closing. Okay.
One more. Who is Joel Murray?
Oh, well, there's a religious instructor in England. There's a Thai boxer in Malaysia. There's a couple of younger kids. You find these things out through Twitter. Who's Joel Murray? It was a very uncommon pairing of a Hebrew first name and an Irish last name, so I was the only one for a long time. But there's a few out there. Joel Murray's a father of 4. He was a coach. He's an actor. He's a writer. He's a director. He's a bon vivant. He's a guy. And if you need a guy in your show, I could play that guy. That's about it. He's a normal guy. He's an everyman.
Well, thank you very much for making the time to talk to us. It's been a great pleasure.
Well, it's my pleasure. It was an interesting interview.
Thank you.
Had a little bit of work. Usually we just talk about the show.
Well, I appreciate it.
Great. All right. Well, I'm going to go walk around St. Louis.
Enjoy.
In my Cubs hat. Okay.
All right. Godspeed.
Take care. Have a good one.
You too.
Pleasure. You too. Bye-bye.